Hello and welcome. Today we're working on Excel Basics, a tutorial for beginners. If you know nothing about Excel and you need to learn, then this is your video. Hello, my name is Jeff from Finally Learn. I teach Excel, I teach financial literacy, so this is the channel for you and this is the video for you. What is Microsoft Excel? It's a digital spreadsheet that manages, calculates, and presents data. It's a lot of times people's first entry into data analysis or data analytics or business analytics. And so here's the setup on Excel. We have columns and rows. I've got 20 tips. Let's get the first one down here. Columns and rows. As you see, the columns are labeled A, B, C, and the rows are 1, 2, 3. We've got a total of like 16,000 columns and about 1 million rows. But if we select one cell, this is in column H, it is in row 3, so this cell is called H3. So now tip number 2 is we have cell names, A1, B7, F3, every cell has a name, and we can actually use ranges like F3 to F44. If we want to add up F3 through F44, we can certainly put that in a formula or a function, and there you have it. All right, tip 3. One problem we have is you got to think about how to enter the information. Now, this one is wrong, and I'm going to show you why it's wrong. We see revenue, we see expenses, this is great, and so let's say we know how to do a formula. We'll see it in just a second, formulas. So we say equals, and I'm going to take the G14 minus the G15. That should be 8,000, but it's not. Why is it 0? Well, let's check. What is in G14? Well, if you look up here at the formula bar, this helps you evaluate what's going on in the cell. There's nothing in the cell, but we can see 40,000. What happens is revenue, somebody typed revenue and then space, 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 $40, comma, 000. So here is the rule. One item in one cell. Don't put a label and a number unless that number is part of the label. And you want to put two different things in two different cells. Now, the other thing that people do sometimes, and when you first get started, you think, well, this is like Word or word processing, and so you think, well, I have to edit. I have to take all those spaces out, edit, edit. No, 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 don't do that. So escape, get out of that. Anything you type right now is going to replace anything in F14. So I'm just going to type revenue over again. Now let's look at that formula, or look at that cell. There's nothing in the cell except revenue, no extra spaces, no dollar signs, no commas. By the way, you never want to type in dollar signs or commas if it's a number you want to use. So just type in, all you have to do is type in 40,000. 40,000. Now it's not formatted at all, but that 40,000, let Excel do the formatting and let it recognize it as a number 40,000. So there we have 40,000 in that cell. We've done the same thing with expenses. Expenses, space, 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 $32, comma. Don't do that. You want to do expenses, type expenses here and type 32,000 there. Now our formula works because we have 40,000 minus 32,000. If you want to make it look pretty, make it more readable, you might want to put dollar signs here. And then you might want to double underline. What we can do here, top line and double bottom underline. And you can see, hey, that looks pretty. It looks like we've done something with it. We ran some math on it. Now, this is the way to enter it. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 things basically entered before we calculated the profit. All right, so let's look at the ribbon and views here just for a minute. One thing, sometimes people will have a spreadsheet, and let's say the spreadsheet opens like this, and they say, well, okay, this is the spreadsheet, and you have all this real estate. You're only using like 1/3 of the screen or 1/4 of the screen. Well, you can bump it up. You can bump it up to 100%. You can bump it up to, and there's another way to do it up here, the View tab, the View ribbon. You can do 125%. You can do 150%. On this video today, I'm doing 200% so you can see it easier, see the numbers. So one of the things you want to do is think about the zoom level and see, you want to use that real estate and try to see as much as you can, make sure it's readable for the viewer. Make sure people understand. If you're showing it on a big screen or showing it on a screen and for a presentation, make sure these numbers are really big so people can see them. You never want to get to the point and say, well, you probably can't see this, but here's what it says, right? Then it's not helpful to show that on the screen if somebody can't read that or see. Now, this at the very top is called the menu. So File, Edit, View, those are menus. And then the next thing down, Home, is the ribbon, the Home ribbon, the Insert ribbon, the Draw ribbon, the Page Layout ribbon, Formulas, Data, and so on. So that's ribbon and views. The other thing, the way it works is each of these tabs that's our beginning, and this is the tab we're on. Each of those tabs would be called a worksheet, and combined, this is a workbook. A book is made up of many sheets of paper, and so therefore that's book. So it's sheets and book is kind of the idea, or a spreadsheet for the whole thing. So there's ribbon and views. That's number 4. Number 5, we mentioned formulas, but here's how to add, subtract, multiply. The asterisk is multiply, divide is the slash, and the exponent is the caret symbol, which is a shift above the 6. So shift 6 would be the caret symbol. Now here's what your formulas look like. And one little tip, how is this formula not running? Well, if we type this number in, let me do that formula. So 15 times, start the parentheses, 1 plus 3, close parentheses. If I hit enter, it's going to calculate that. It knows it's a formula and it calculates that. So the parentheses happens first, 1 plus 3, it's 4. So then 15 times 4 is 60. And there's your answer. Now, how do you show? There's a couple of different ways to show the formula. One way to show it is simply add an apostrophe in front of the equal sign, and then it shows, hey, this is a label. It ignores the formula. So that's what I did at the very beginning. Now, we'll talk about this tip later on. I'm going to undo, which is Command Z or Control Z if you're on a Mac or Windows. I'm on a Mac, so it is, for me, it is Command Z, undo. What about this formula? Now remember, math order of operations, if it's been a while, you've got to kind of remind yourself how this works. So if you do 15 times 1 plus 3, it's going to do 15 times 1, 15 plus 3, so the answer is 18. So the parentheses matter and the order of operations matter. So that's how you do basic formulas. Now number 6 is functions. Functions, I'm going to call functions when you have a built-in Excel function. Now sometimes they call these formulas. If you look at formulas tab, they call these formulas. But this is really a function, so it could be a sum or an average. Or there's one called formula text where you can kind of evaluate a formula of another cell. You kind of see what it looks like, because sometimes once you hit enter, you don't see the formula anymore. You see the result. It could be an error or whatever. Let me show you how to do a couple of formulas and a function, how to kind of solve some problems. Let's say we have a little problem here. We have revenues, cost of sales, and expenses, and we want to try to figure out profit. So one way you can do it is just hard code the numbers. Just type the numbers in. This is the worst way of doing it. Don't do it this way. I'm just showing you this is a bad example. So I'm going to say equals, and I'm going to type in 45,000 minus 28,000 rather, minus 11,000. Well, the answer is 6,000. I think I did that correctly. I'm not exactly sure if it really is 6,000. We'd have to go back and say, did I put all the right numbers in there? Now, the problem with this method is, let's say it's not 45,000, it's 54,000. You say, uh-oh, I have to redo my formula, right? This formula is more time intensive and it doesn't handle changes. One of the things that happens with Excel is you want to do some what-if analysis. What-if analysis means you can change the numbers. So I'm going to do Command Z, change. And I'm going to show you Formula 2. This is a good way of doing it. Formula 2, you're going to say equals 45,000, and because it's already a negative number, I'm going to do plus 28,000 plus 11,000. So I feel good that my profit really is 6,000. So this is using cell references, so this is a good way of doing it. If the 54,000 replaces the 45,000, then the formula is dynamic, and we calculate profit to be 15,000. One of the things that happens is you can have a big spreadsheet. If you've hard-coded the numbers in, then this is a really big problem because you got to figure out every cell that used those numbers. All right, the last way to do it is probably the best way to do it in this problem. We can just add these up using the sum function. So the sum function. So we start with an equals and we start typing in sum. And there it is. Start with a parentheses. And we can do a range. We can do a range, close parentheses. That is even faster. Okay, we'll show how to do that even faster, do a sum. So you can hard code the numbers in, which you don't want to do. You can use cell references, which is good. If you can sum it up, then you can do that faster with the sum function than with the building the formula one step at a time. Imagine if you had 50 things to add up, you're not going to add 1 plus 2 plus 3, all those different cells. You're going to do a sum function. Now let's do several little tips together, 7, 8, and 9. We're going to do copy and paste, and we're going to do relative address and cell formatting. So we'll kind of do this all together. Now, we want to do, let's say we have a company that has apples, oranges, bananas. We sell all these and we have different cases. Somebody ordered a bunch of cases of apples and oranges and so on, and we have unit cost. Well, here I'm going to do unit cost. I'm going to go to my home ribbon and I'm going to put $, and because it's a unit cost, I'm happy to keep the pennies here. Now, one thing we're going to do is we're going to do total sales. So how do we do this? It's going to be 100 units times 22. 100 units times 22 is 2,200. All right, so that is fine, and we want to copy it down. One of the things we want to do is copy. So I'm going to show you 5 different ways to copy real quickly. I want to copy these down because once we have the one set up, the formula, then we can copy it down. And Excel is excellent at this. This is one of the very basic things you can do is copy and paste, and that's helpful. So let me start with number 1. You can go to the edit menu. You can go up here, way up to the edit menu, and find copy. And by the way, it says, hey, you can use a keyboard shortcut, Command-C, but you say, no, I'm going to use the edit menu anyway, copy, and then I'm going to highlight this with my mouse, and then I'm going to go up here again and paste. So that's fine. So look what happens. We have cell C47 times D47. If you go down to lemons, you want the lemons, the cases are 180 and the unit cost is 24. So do you see what happens? As we copy down, it changes the formula down one cell for each row that goes down. So this is what's called relative address. It says, you know, if you were talking in English to somebody, you would say, hey, take the cases times the unit cost. Where you're showing Excel how to do that, you're taking the cases times the unit cost for apples and for oranges and for bananas. So to get the 950, it took 50 times 19. Let's check the formula. See, that is a life-saving, kind of a time-saving kind of thing, because it really saves a lot of time in terms of getting a copy something that's very similar. So that's a relative address. All right, we did the edit menu. There's another way to do it. That's the right-click method. Right-click, you can do copy, and then highlight all this, and then hit paste. So that's faster. I probably never ever use the edit menu. I do right-click a good bit. Another way to do it is with the fill handle. If we go and look at, we've built the formula, and you see on the right, if you look right here, do you see how my cursor is a outline of a plus sign, and then I move it on the right-hand corner, the bottom right-hand corner, it changes into a solid? Well, that's the fill handle. I can just hold the left button on my mouse and drag. or do something similar with your trackpad. You kind of hold it on the left and then drag, and that is drag with the fill handle. There's another way to do it. There is the double click method. Do the same thing, go to the bottom right, and then just your left mouse, double click, and it'll send it down. This is so satisfying if you have 100 rows and you have one formula and you double click and it just fills in all the formulas. It knows when to stop because you're building a table. Now the last one is another fast way. The double click is probably the fastest way. Sometimes that doesn't work, or sometimes the table is set up where it won't work. So the last way would be just Command C and then Command V. I'm on a Mac, so I'm using Command C and Command V. That's pretty fast. If you're on Windows, it'll be Control C and Control V. Okay. Now, let's do shipping costs. Let's say 5% of our total sales, it would be shipping cost. So we're going to take the 2,200 times the 5. And we don't want to type in that 5%. We want to point to it because it may change from 4 to 5 to 6 or whatever. So there it is, $110. Now we know how to copy. Let's double click to copy, and we're fine. I'm sure that. Don't worry about this. Sometimes people think, well, I did it and I don't know what happens. Obviously there's an error. Why is there an error? Let's see what happens. Okay. As we move down sales, we want to use oranges, but it now is multiplying oranges total sales by shipping, which is a label, so there's an error. So here's what we have to figure out. We need to figure out absolute. We always want to keep the 5% the same. So let me get rid of this. So if we go to the F45, and let's select the F45, this is the 5%. We want to do the F4 or the function F4, depends on if you have a computer that has some multimedia in F4. Try F4. If it doesn't work, then try function F4. So if I do function F4, do you see it changes to dollars? That is the anchor. That's called an absolute address. It anchors it at 5%. So now we can double click. We're going to double click and go all the way down. So let's check this one. See if it looks correct for lemons. So we have the 4320 times 5%. That's how you do it. And you have a combination of relative. The total sales is relative, but the 5% is absolute. So this is an excellent way to do things. And this is the one real advantage of using Excel, and it can save you lots of time. All right, let's do some quick things here. We had copy and paste 5 ways, absolute and relative addressing. We did cell formatting. All this is good. So let's do the sum of the total sales. So we can do sum equals, start with parentheses, add all this up, close the parentheses. The sum of our total sales is $15,070. The average, same thing, the average formula, start with parentheses, highlight all this, close parentheses, the average sale is $3,014. All right, number 10, let's do AutoSum. We now know how to do a sum. So what traditionally people have done is they do a sum, and let me do one real quickly, a sum of all these numbers, close parentheses, and then you have 8,400, and then you copy it across. That doesn't take too long, but there's a faster way. So let me undo. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the data, plus I'm going to highlight the bottom, which is the row at the bottom we want to add up, and then the column to the right we want to add up. And we can do it 2 different ways. I can go up here to the AutoSum button on the home ribbon. I can hit AutoSum, and it calculates all that. So this is a sum, everything you see is a formula. That's super fast. There's now a faster way. You can do it with keyboard shortcuts. So I'm going to do it with keyboard shortcuts. Here I am. On my Mac, I'm going to do Command-Shift-T. Command-Shift-T does it. If you have 50 rows, calculating the totals that quickly is super helpful. People are going to love you at work when you do this and you're fast. So I'm going to put dollar signs and everything, and that is finished. Okay, we're through number 10. Now let's do the next one. Let's say we have a table. Here's a table from Sagarin about the 2019 college football season. Here are their college football ratings. So we have the top 20 teams, and it is a table, but it's not formatted very well. So let's figure out a way to format. Let me show you a trick on formatting a table. So I'm going to highlight this, and I know we've got some issues. We can't read everything, so let's highlight all this. And we're going to do Command Shift across and then down, highlight everything, or it can just drag it and copy and highlight everything. Now let me show you a little secret. You can, on the Home tab, it says Format as Table. So I'm going to format as a table. I'm going to find one that I think is very nice. It's going to be an official table in Excel. So I'm going to try this light blue. And I've got headers. And do you see what it does? This makes it where it's easy to read. You've got alternating highlights in each row. That's very helpful. Now, I don't want to keep it like this forever. I don't want it to be in a table. So now if I'm in the table, I have a special ribbon, and I'm going to convert it to range. Convert it to a normal range, yes. But what it does, it's converted this to a good-looking table. Somebody says, man, I really like the way you format that table. You've got good table skills. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. So here's what happens. We probably need a little wider column on a couple of them, where we can read the team name, the rating, the schedule, the wins, losses, the schedule rank, the top 10 wins, the top 10 losses, the conference. So we're going to just widen that column a little bit and make it easier to read. That's pretty easy to read. It looks like you spent a lot of time doing that. Man, I don't know how to do that. Well, that's your secret. That's your little secret sauce there. So there's formatting a table. We did column width. You can just take this, highlight the B, and go in between the B and the C. Give yourself some room. Help people to read it. Now, let's do filter and sort. You say, hey, this is ranked according to the rating. So what you want to do is just put just select a cell, any cell within the table. And we're going to go to Data and then Filter. We're going to hit this button. And you see it gives us drop down little arrows in each one. So you might say, hey, I like to alphabetize things. So I'm going to go to Team and then do Ascending, and it's alphabetized. So here's Alabama, Auburn, Baylor, Clemson, so on. You might say, hey, I want to do it by rating, and I want to do from descending, so it's the largest number down. I might want to do, who had the hardest schedule? In the top 20, who had the hardest schedule? So the hardest schedule would be ascending. So the hardest schedule, Auburn had the number 2 hardest schedule. Their schedule was ranked 2 in the country. Then LSU, the national champion, was number 3. They were 15-0, and they had 5 top 10 wins. So who had the most top 10 wins? I think it's going to be LSU. So descending will be LSU had 5 top 10 wins. Ohio State, 3 top 10 wins. That's filter. Now sort, we did some sort, but it also can filter. You can also say, hey, I want to select only the teams from the Big Ten. So I want to take them all off. I'm going to select, here are the 6 teams from the Big Ten. And it is sorted by, looks like it's sorted, well, it's not quite sorted by rating. We can go back and change the rating to descending. So here's our Big Ten teams in descending order. If you want to go back and change it, find the SEC teams. Here are the SEC teams, the 6 that are in the SEC, and it gets rid of everything else. So this is a filter, and we did some sort, and so this is a good way to handle tables and handle data. Now, if you want to take this completely off the filter, you can just go back and it filters it out, and this is now sorted by a different one. If you want to go back and sort it by rating, go back and do rating descending, and then take the filter off, and you're good. So you're now 1 through 20 and so on. All right, we got a couple more little things to do. We're at 14. We got 6 more. So one thing that happens, number 15, is sometimes people think, well, each tab or each worksheet is its own. You can't switch back and forth. That's not true. So I'm going to show you how we can deal with multiple tabs on this tab or this worksheet. We're going to use the data on previous worksheets. Now I'm going to show you VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP is the third most popular Excel function. We've got sum, we have average, and then VLOOKUP. So let me show you what VLOOKUP does. VLOOKUP is a vertical lookup. So let's say we want to find oranges. We want to find the total sales. Well, we can click over here, oranges, total sales, 3,400. But we want to point to it. We don't have to go back and find that. We want to point to it. So here's what happens. This is VLOOKUP. I'm going to show the formula builder, and then later on I'll do a little data validation. All right, so before I've been typing in the formula, and the formula is called VLOOKUP. And so we can hit tab, and it starts with a formula. This formula is a little more complex, so I recommend on complex formulas we use the formula builder. So let's escape, and let's go to the top. You see this FX? This is function, so let's click on the function. Now on the Mac, we have the formula builder to the right, and it's on the right column, and it's attached to the right. If you have a Windows machine, then you have a dialog box that pops up in the middle. You can kind of move it around, but it's the same kind of thing. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do the lookup, the VLOOKUP. I'm going to search for VLOOKUP. Here it is. I'm going to double click, and then this gives me, hey, here's the 4 things I need on VLOOKUP. I'm going to look up oranges. I'm going to point to that. And then my table array. I have a table array that's over here on my intro. So I need to highlight apples, oranges, bananas, so on, and cases and unit cost and total sales. Now I want the total sales. Now do you see what happens? It has single quote intro to Excel because I called my tab intro to Excel. So I have intro to Excel and then B47, E51. Now I'm going to pick, it's the 4th column in that little table, oranges, and then cases, and then price, and then total sales. So it's the 4th one. And here it asks us to do true or false. It's not really going to matter on this situation. I want an exact match, so I'm going to type in false. And so I'm going to hit done. And I think that's the correct number. Let's go back and check. So what we have is oranges. The 4th column over, 1, 2, 3, 4 is total sales of 3,400. And that's pretty awesome. So you can use a multiple tab. You can use a formula on this tab that references data on a previous tab. Now let me show you, and here's the formula builder. We just did that. Let me show you how to do this with data validation. So we can type in lemons, and that pulls that number. What else do we have? Do we have apples? Pulls that number. Let me show you a slick way of doing this with a little function called data validation. If I go to my home tab, I have, no, data tab, sorry. Sometimes I have a hard time finding things. So data ribbon, data validation, I'm going to do data validation. And here's what happens. I'm going to put a list in, and what's my list? My list is going to be, and I can click over here, I'm going to do a list of apples, oranges, bananas, grapes, and lemons. Okay? And I'm going to hit OK. So the only thing, now do you see it added a little drop down? The only thing that I can pick, you've seen this on websites, a little drop down list. I can only pick apples, or I can pick oranges, and now it does the VLOOKUP. Pretty powerful, right? You can do bananas, 950. You can do grapes, 4,200, and you can do lemons, 4,320. I'm going to format this for $signs, and that is a really helpful function, VLOOKUP, and now I have data validation because I'm worried about somebody typing in lemon rather than lemons. If you type in lemon, it won't work. It has to be lemons. All right, so here we did VLOOKUP, formula builder, data validation. We've got 2 more, 3 more. This is 21. I guess we have 21 rather than 20. Man, little plus. All right, let's do another couple of things. Let's go back to our college football data and let's look at the conference. What's the average of the teams and how many teams are there? So we're going to use an average ifs and a count ifs. We got 2 more little functions to do. And here it's going to be helpful if we use a named range. Now, for the average, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to show you how this works. So for the average, we're going to do the rating. So I'm going to highlight this column and I'm going to call this column rating. Now I can name it. Instead of being C11 through C30, I can name it. Up here at the very top beside the formula bar where it says C11, I'm going to call this rating. R-A-T-I-N-G. Capitalize the R. I don't think it matters. So the rating. And I'm also going to highlight and name the conference names. And I'm just going to call it conference. C-O-N-F. How about that? We don't have to type in that whole thing. So on the average, we're going to say, let's average. If it says SEC, let's do an average. If it says Big Ten, let's do an average. Okay? So we're going to use the formula builder. So go back to our formula builder. We're going to do average ifs. I'm going to search for it here. I used it pretty recently. So let me show you how this one works. What are we going to average? We're going to average, if it says SEC or Big Ten, we're going to average the rating. So I'm going to type in rating, I-N-G, and you see now the average range is going to be the rating. What's the criteria range? Well, the criterion range is called conference, C-O-N-F, SEC, Big Ten, those are labels. And we're going to do it based on the criteria. Well, what if it says SEC, right? So we'll hit done. So it's 93.54. We're going to copy this down. One reason why we do the named range is because you can read it. You can see it says average it, the rating based on conference if it says Big 12, right? Now, what if you did this and you had typed in Pac-12? Well, it doesn't work because the Pac-12 has a little dash or hyphen in that. And so it only works if you have the exact name. So sometimes you have the formula right or the function right, but you have to get the label correct. We can do count, the same kind of thing. So let's do count ifs. How many teams from each conference are in that list? This is even simpler. I want to, the criteria range is conference, C-O-N-F, conference is what I named it. The criteria is, let's do SEC, and there's 6 SEC teams. We talked about that earlier. And then copy it down. There's 6 in the Big Ten, 1 in the ACC, 3 in the Pac-12, 3 in the Big Ten. Now, what if we say, hey, you know, we really want to change this. We want to change this to be alphabetical. Well, we can go to the data function and just change this to be alphabetical. So here we have a button. We want to sort. No, just continue with the current selection. Let's see how this works. Yes, and this is correct because SEC, it's pulling based on the name. So it's pulling SEC is correct, 6. Big Ten's correct, 91 with 6. ACC has 1 team, Clemson, but they're higher ranked than most teams, so their average, their conference average is much, much higher. All right, very last thing, one more tip. Paste special. What if you want to paste and you say, hey, this is great information. I'm going to paste this and put it on another tab where I'm going to do some more analysis with it. So I'm going to copy and paste. Well, this worked. I didn't think it would. So what happens on this, let's say we just want to use the numbers, and you have all this divided by 0 because it doesn't have something. So you want to copy just these numbers. Let's do it this way. You want to copy these numbers, put them right here, and it's not going to work, right? So you want to paste special. So I'm going to highlight this, copy, and then down here we're going to right click, paste special, and we're going to paste just the values. So what happens here, let's get rid of everything else. what happens here is you might want to just say, hey, I just want to paste the values because I don't want that to always be running a formula. Here, the 101.53 is a formula. This is 101.53 just as a number. So that's paste special. Sometimes you need a number that's built in because of a formula. You might need it just to be that number. And that's it. We have 21 tips for the Excel beginner so you can finally learn Excel. Hey, if this video has been great for you, then please subscribe and thumbs up. And we'd love to hear your comments. What is a tip that you would make for a beginner if they're trying to learn Excel? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Finally Learn.